Picture flipping through a dusty crate at 2 a.m. and pulling a record that sounds like Sabbath colliding with a jet engine. No hype sticker, no household name, just riffs that rearrange your spine. That's the energy of this countdown. The story of rock wasn't written only by the bands on stadium marquees. It was carved in rehearsal rooms, student unions, and tiny Euro labels where tape rolled hot and budgets were cold. These are the groups that didn't get the t-shirt but did the heavy lifting. Tonight we're tracing the shadow history. Proto-metal before the term existed, violin/prog, Dutch twin guitar epics, Japanese thunder, Mexican psych with hooks sharp enough to draw blood. We'll hit the one definitive track for each band, the album to hunt, and the tiny decisions, label misfires, bad timing, vanished managers, that kept giants underground. Ground rules, no canon filler, no repeats, and every pick earns its spot on sound alone. Plug in, turn the lows up till the kick drum breathes, and let's count down 15 bands you've never heard of who just might become your new favorites. If you dropped a laser on London circa 1970, you'd find 1,000 power trios rehearsing in storage units. T2 are the one that sounds like they stole an orchestra's dynamics and ran them through fuzz pedals. On their cult LP, It'll All Work Out in Boomland. Every arrangement breathes. Passages expand and collapse. Drums surge and reseed. The bass doesn't just anchor, it argues back. The guitars don't solo, so much has changed the weather. The core trick is dynamic engineering. T2 write in long arcs. Songs have internal movements like a suite. The drummer lets toms act as transitional motifs. The bass exploits open strings to thicken the spectrum, and the guitar toggles between shimmering arpeggios and sawtooth leads without losing thematic continuity. That's why the record feels big, even when it's 3 people in a room. Why they vanished, timing and label gravity. The UK majors in 1970 were triaging dozens of heavy bands. Without a champion, even a near masterpiece can slide into cult status. Bootlegs and spotty reissues didn't help. Start here. Morning, 1970. Listen for the volume swells at the top, like violins sneaking in, then the drop into a riff that keeps mutating. At 4:10, the drums reframe the groove, and the song takes flight. That's Boomland in miniature. Audiophile note. Original Decca pressings are scarce and pricey. Later legit reissues finally do the low mids justice. Play loud. Before Doom and post-rock built whole scenes on violins versus amplifiers, High Tide weaponized the combo. Guitarist Tony Hill and violinist/keyboardist Simon House, later of Hawkwind, lock into a duel where melody and feedback are the same currency. The debut Sea Shanties, 1969, is not polite psychedelia, it's treble-rich turbulence with a rhythm section punching holes in 4/4. The band's vocabulary is closer to a string quartet's argument than a blues jam. The violin isn't sweetening, it's counter-riffing, often in unison at the octave for a serrated edge. Hill's guitar favors tight, descending figures that threaten to go off the rails, then resolve at the last second. Underneath, the drummer plays phrases, not patterns. Fills act like punctuation, not decoration. Why they vanished. They were too heavy for the folk circuit, too esoteric for pure blues heads, and too early for the prog mainstream. They didn't fit the racks. Start here, Feudalist Lament, 1969. First minute. You get the thesis. Violin doubles the riff to make it bite, then breaks free into a keening line while the guitar grinds the harmony darker. Notice the basses walking into a storm feel. For the nerds, the mono-to-stereo perception shifts are tape, not trickery. Guitars hard-panned, violins stepping across the field. On headphones, you can see the dual. May Blitz arrived with the swirling Vertigo label on the back and a rhythm section. That new negative space is an instrument. Where a lot of early 70s heavy bands crammed the bar, May Blitz leave air between the hits so the kick, drum, and bass land like anchors. The guitar tone is thick but unhurried. Riffs linger long enough for the overtones to bloom. They're also better arrangers than their reputation suggests. Verses sneak in halftime. Bridges drop the floor out for a bar or two. Then the band slams the door on the chorus. Tiny structural choices that give songs internal drama without prog bloat. The drummer's cymbal work is all about shape, not sizzle. You feel the crashes carve arcs through the mix. Why they vanished. Vertigo's roster was stacked, tours were brutal, and their second LP arrived into a marketplace already pivoting toward glam gloss and singer-songwriter intimacy. Heavy power trio records without a hit single fell between formats. Start Here, Smoking the Day Away, 1970. That opening riff is a thesis, patient, monolithic, and slightly behind the beat, so the groove leans. At 2:30, the guitar desaturates, and you hear how well the rhythm section breathes. Collector tip: the Spiral label original is a trophy. Recent remasters finally restore the kick drum's chest hit. Let your speakers work. The secret weapon is discipline. Tempos don't rush, fills are economical, and choruses arrive exactly when your ear wants them. They can swing without softening and stomp without losing clarity. The bass plays counterhooks, not merely root notes, so when the guitar steps out, the song doesn't collapse. Why they vanished. Tiny original pressing, poor distribution, and a scene moving toward flashier theatrics. By the time the world wanted this sound again, the record was a ghost passed between collectors. Start Here, Freelance Fiend, 1971. Count the micro-hesitations. The band lags a hair on the backside of phrases to make the chorus feel like a shove. The solo doesn't shred, it insists. Modern ear. If you love Queens of the Stone Age or early Orange Goblin, this is the dry source code. Houston's Josephus carry a different kind of heaviness. Barband DNA hardened by Vietnam-era tension. The guitars don't float, they press. The drums feel like hardwood floors. The bass has that Gulf Coast low end that rattles neon beer signs. Their calling card is the long-form bruiser Dead Man, 1970. A sweep that moves from blues dirge to full-tilt catharsis without ever sounding contrived. What sets them apart is intent. Where some psych-heavy outfits drifted, Josephus commit. The drummer sits right on top of the beat to keep propulsion. The rhythm guitar uses clipped chords to leave room for the vocal narrative, and the lead guitar treats feedback like punctuation, not a party trick. It's American heaviness, less ornate, more sweat. Why they vanished, regional label limitations, and the geographic bias of the rock press. Texas bands had to shout twice as loud to be heard in New York or London. Josephus shouted in tone and time instead. Start Here, Dead Man, 1970. First section, Funeral March. Middle, the tempo inches forward, like someone standing up from a bar stool to swing. Final minutes. Release, not chaos, but the kind of locked-in fury that makes time dilate. Turn it up warning. This track reveals bad speakers. If the bass flaps, it's not them, it's your cones.
I hear sirens calling me.
If early metal had a Bronx Brooklyn borough sound, Sir Lord Baltimore were it. hurricane drums, serrated vocals, and tempos that feel like a car shot out of the Lincoln Tunnel at 2 a.m. Their debut Kingdom Come, 1970, is often cited as ground zero American proto-metal because it dispenses with blues mannerisms and jumps straight to velocity and impact.
Turn, turn, wheel of fortune spin.
The kit doesn't accompany, it attacks. Guitars are stacked like a wall of lawnmower blades, fuzz pushed into the red. Vocals? Half prayer, half street corner howl. The band's cleverness is rhythmic. The drummer phrases in bursts, tiny accelerations that make the downbeat hit harder, while the rhythm guitar stabs leave negative space for the bass to launch.
On crimson majesty.
Choruses resolve fast. Bridges arrive like the turn of a switchblade. You hear the blueprint for later American heaviness that prizes drive over filigree. Why they didn't conquer. A sound this extreme in 1970 was hard to market. Without a radio-ready single or a tour machine to match the energy, they became a legend traded on cassette.
Turn, turn, wheel of fortune spin.
Start here. Master heartache. Count how quickly the groove goes from stride to sprint, and how the cymbals draw a bright halo around the riff. When the vocal tears in, the lyric becomes another percussion instrument. Play note. This mix rewards volume. If your speakers can't track the kick at speed, use headphones. This record is a cardio workout. Before joining Atomic Rooster, John Duke captained Andromeda, a trio that fuses psych drama with prog architecture without losing the song. The trick is Duke's ear for anthemic motifs. Verses set up melodic payoffs you can hum. Then the band expands those ideas into extended sections that feel earned, not indulgent.
Her touch was a tide of love in our heart.
The bass doesn't just hold root, it sings counterlines, which lets the guitar step into long melodies without the floor dropping away. Production is bone dry by design. Close mic drums, guitar either hard-panned or doubled for lift, vocals placed to ride the crest of the riff. It's heavy music that still behaves like songs first. You come away remembering choruses, not just tones. Why they didn't conquer. Label turbulence and bad timing.
One day my life will fade and I'll join the stars.
In 69 to 70, the racks were crowded with heavy trios. Without a decisive single and constant roadwork, you became a collector's object. Start here. Return to sanity. The intro promises menace. The chorus blooms without getting syrupy. The midsection proves they can stretch and snap back to the hook on command. Record nerd aside, original UK pressings are scarce. Newer reissues finally give the toms the weight they deserve. Named after a Victorian novel, Berlin's Blackwater Park built a single LP, Dirt Box, 1972, that sounds like a rehearsal room exploding in hi-fi. The signature is Hammond muscle, organ as co-guitar, with a rhythm section that plays like it's guiding a convoy through traffic. Firm, purposeful, unflustered. Vocals are gritty without swagger. The frontman rides the beat like a second snare. Arrangements favor parallel power. Guitar and Hammond often double the riff in different octaves, making the downbeat land like a dropped safe. Then the organ peels off into Leslie swirl filigree while the guitar grinds the harmony darker. Think hard prog where every part has a job and no bar arrives empty-handed. Why they didn't conquer. Germany's early 70s export pipeline spotlighted the cosmic/experimental fringe. A band this song forward and heavy fell between domestic scenes and foreign expectations. Start here, One's Life. Here the organ announced the chords like floodlights snapping on. Then the riff locked to the snare. When the guitar breaks free, the Hammond keeps the roof from lifting off. Listen tip, If your system can image well, you'll see guitar left, organ right, drums centered, an object lesson in hardpan power. Dutch quartet Cargo specialize in melodic heft, two guitars conversing in long lines, then arriving at riffs that resolve like a well-told story. The rhythm section is patient. The drummer plays phrases more than patterns, opening hi-hats to widen the bar, then dropping to toms for a sense of terrain. Bass favors melodic walking underheld chords, which keeps the engine moving even when the guitars drift into trance. What makes them addictive is structure. Songs unfold in episodes, theme, variation, return, without prog bloat. The tones are warm, mid-forward, tape-saturated. You feel the string windings, not just the distortion. It's the kind of heaviness that asks for time, then rewards it with motifs you catch yourself humming later. Why they didn't conquer? Limited distribution and the tyranny of language markets. Radio wanted short hooks, Cargo wrote long arcs. They became a secret handshake among collectors instead. Start here, finding out. The first motif states the thesis. The second section rotates the harmony, so the ground seems to tilt. The return lands like home. For guitar heads, study the call and answer voicings. No ego intrusion, just parts locking like carpentry. Edinburgh's Writing on the Wall brought a theatrical streak to heavy psych. Vocals with stage lights on them, organ that behaves like a lead instrument, and guitars that know when to stop and when to pounce. Their recordings feel like short plays, scenes with rising action, a twist, a curtain line. Drums are roomy and physical. The snare speaks in full sentences, not just backbeats. The organ is the hinge. In verses it underscores, long, minor pads that tint the scene. Then in choruses it shouts, doubling the riff to make its civic alarm loud. Guitar tone is woolly in the best way, fuzzy but articulate, as if the pick attack etches the riff into glass. Over it, the vocal sells the drama without tipping into camp. Why they didn't conquer? They sat awkwardly between psych residue and the coming glam/prog split. Too heavy for art rock, too artful for barband radio. The algorithm of 1969 didn't have a lane. Start here. It came on a Sunday. Note the staging. Quiet menace to set the scene, then the organ drop that opens the ceiling. The outro doesn't fade. It exits like a stage blackout. Tape note, original mixes can sound unruly. Remasters tame the harshness without sanding off the theater. Before members decamped to Egg and Gong, they slipped into a studio under the pseudonym Arzakel and lit a match. The self-titled 1969 LP doesn't behave like a debut. It behaves like a document of contact. Organ rave-ups pitched into feedback storms. Guitar fuzz so saturated it seems to bend the room. Rhythm section playing with the urgency of stolen studio time. The songs don't wander, they jump cliffs. The architecture is organ-led in the classic British psych sense. Think Vox/Leslie choral swirl, but the attack is closer to proto-metal than to whimsy. Drums are recorded dry and close. Fills carve lanes through the organ fog. Bass plays counter-melody more than root, giving the music a tug-of-war feel. Every bar threatens to tilt over, then locks at the last second. Why they vanished? The Arzakel name was a legal fiction for a quick, hot session. There was no touring plan, no brand, and the members immediately moved on to projects with actual calendars. Scarce pressings turned the album into a collector's rumor, then a grail. Start here. Azathoth. You get the thesis in seconds. Ritual drone intro organ detonates guitar, tears a vertical line down the mix. Listen for how the drums pull the band back from the cliff right before each freefall. Nerd note. Even later reissues leave some tape hair. Don't fear the grit. It's part of the electricity.
You know I found. Well, son, go.
Blues creation began as a Japanese blues cover outfit and, by 1971, had willed themselves into a hard rock original with cannon-shot downbeats and guitars recorded so dry you feel the paper of the speaker cone. The pivot arrives with albums like Demon and 11 Children. Riffs tighten, tempos stop apologizing, and the band writes to the moment of impact rather than the 12-bar. What separates them from Western peers isn't imitation, it's focus. Arrangements are uncluttered to the point of monkishness. Verse, hammer, release. No wasted bars. Drums favor center lane authority. Kick and snare like guardrails, while the bass writes short counter themes so the guitar can hold a single idea and make it loom. Vocals keep to the mid-range, urgent, not theatrical. Why they vanished: language market barriers and distribution. International rock press rarely listened east unless it was exotica or pure psych. By the time reissue culture caught up, the band had changed personnel and the story had scattered. Start here. Just I Was Born, 1971. Hear the first hit of the riff. No room reverb, just a slab of tone. The chorus doesn't try to float, it drives. You can map a straight line from this discipline to later stoner and doom minimalism. Guitar heads, the high mid bite is the point. Don't warm it up with EQ. Let the edge talk. There are heavy bands, and then there's Flower Travelin' Band, who made heaviness into a trance mechanism. On Satori, 1971, 5 linked movements spiral around modal riffs that evolve like weather systems. Drums favor tom-heavy patterns that feel ritualistic. The bass traces root and fifth like a mantra, and Joe Yamanaka's vocal threads between human cry and instrument. The genius isn't just the riffs, it's the patience. Movements sit on a figure long enough to hypnotize, then tilt the harmony a degree so your inner ear snaps awake. Guitar tone is wiry and vocal, not syrupy. The notes cut rather than smear. You can hear the band listening. Breathing is one. So when the dynamic surges happen, they feel earned, not engineered. Why they vanished: a domestic scene in flux, international distribution thin, and a sound too monolithic for single-driven radio. For decades, Satori lived as a whispered recommendation passed between collectors and musicians. Start here. Satori Part 2. It's the portal, a single riff as journey, dynamics as narrative, drums that make your room feel smaller and bigger at once. If it resonates, play the whole suite front to back. It was designed that way. For modern ears, this is the blueprint for post-metal's meditative side and the long-form heaviness of bands that came decades later. From Durango garage beginnings to Mexico City studios, Los Dug Dugs built a bilingual psych hard rock that refuses to choose between hooks and heat. The organ is a co-guitar, bright Leslie spin against crunchy rhythm, and the band writes choruses you can sing on first contact. Where a lot of psych leans jammy, they stay song true. Verses land clean, bridges escalate, and solos serve the tune. Production favors immediacy. Drums are close and a touch dry, vocals right on the mic. Guitar with just enough dirt to chew. Bilingual lyrics weren't a gimmick. They were a strategy. a way to cut through regional radio while nodding to the Anglophone market. The result is records that feel like opened windows, fresh air, street noise, sun, rather than basement jams. Why they vanished: limited cross-border push and industry turbulence. Even killer bands needed a stable pipeline to break internationally, and Mexico's rock infrastructure of the early 70s was volatile. Start here. Lost in My World, Perdido en mi Mundo, 1971. Organ states the scene, guitar locks the riff, and the chorus lands like a memory you're somehow just now remembering. It's psych rock that smiles while it smokes. Deep cut direction. Once hooked, head for Cool ES to Nombre to hear the same pop instincts in another register.
You know, bro, there's just something special about the sound of a classic rock album on vinyl. It's how these albums were originally meant to be heard: the warmth, the crackle, and the ritual of dropping the needle on the record. It's an experience that digital just can't recreate. And if you've ever wanted to dive into that classic vinyl sound, but didn't know where to start, I've got you covered. I've been checking out this Victrola Bluetooth portable suitcase turntable. It's the perfect way to get into vinyl. You just pop it open, put on a masterpiece like Led Zeppelin's 4 or Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, and let the needle drop on that legendary groove. The best part is, it's a suitcase design, so you can literally take your rock and roll vibes anywhere. You can move it from your bedroom to the living room, or even take it to a friend's place. And it even has Bluetooth, so you can stream music from your phone when you're not spinning records. It's the best of both worlds. This is a great starting point for any fan who wants to feel the foundation of rock lore in a whole new way. If you're interested in grabbing one for yourself, I've put a link to it in the description below. Clicking that link and buying one is an awesome way to support the channel and help us keep bringing you more deep dives into the music we all love. So go check it out, and let's get back to the countdown.
Edinburgh's The Human Beast cut one LP in 1970 and vanished, leaving behind a record that plays like a night walk, lean, ominous, and strangely intimate. The guitar tone is knife bright at the top and shadow thick below. The rhythm section moves like a single animal, drum stalking, bass coiling. Vocals are cool, nearly fatalistic, which makes the lyrics land harder. There's no bloat, arrangements are spare, transitions quick, atmosphere dense. What sets them apart is suspense. They understand that the space before impact is often the most powerful place in rock. Choruses don't lift so much as tighten. The organ, when it appears, is texture not furniture, like a cold breath crossing the back of your neck. The mix lets transients through, pick attack, snare wire rattle, the grain of the room. Why they vanished: micro-pressing, minimal touring footprint, and a sound that didn't fit any of the rising lanes. Too dark for pop radio, too disciplined for freak-out psych, too eerie for blues clubs. The result, an album that lived as a rumor until reissue archaeology dragged it into daylight. Start here. Appearance is everything. Style is a way of living. The title is a sneer and a thesis. The music is controlled menace. Listen to how the groove never hurries, how the guitar flickers between rhythm and lead like a blade catching light. Play advice: late night, good headphones, volume high enough to feel the kick as a physical pulse. This one wants the dark. The journey doesn't end here, Rock Warrior. Watch this next.
You know Pink Floyd and Yes, but what about the bands the legends listened to in private? The names buried on lost labels, weird pressings, and late-night forum threads. Obscure, epic, underrated, 15 bands, zero filler. This is rock lore, In the next few minutes, you'll meet 15 prog acts from the UK, Europe, and South America that will rewire your playlist tonight. Symphonic, Zool, RIO, Canterbury, folk prog, each with one album that proves the case. Every pick is fact-checked, album-focused, and chosen for songwriting, musicianship, and replay value, not hype or chart position. One has Mellotron shivers that feel haunted. One turns Neruda's poetry into Andean thunder, and one revived analog prog in the 90s like it never died. Subscribe, drop your deepest cut recommendation in the comments, and let's build the ultimate obscure prog map together. 15 to 11, let's begin. In 1981, a Chilean band living and recording far from home set out to fuse a continent's ancient breath with modern rock instrumentation. Alturas de Machu Picchu isn't just an album, it's a cultural bridge. Los Jaivas took Pablo Neruda's towering poem cycle from Canto General and gave it melody, rhythm, and thunder, turning a literary monument into a living, breathing rock opera. Recorded in Paris at Pate Marconi Studios and released in October 1981, the record folds Andean instruments, tarka, trutruca, charango, into electric guitars, Rhodes, mini-moog, and tubular bells, then layers choral invocations over symphonic progressions. The band had never stood atop the citadel when they began composing. They worked from photographs, channeling an imagined altitude into the slow-motion rise of La Poderosa Muerte and the ceremonial pulse of Antigua, America. Months later, they carried the finished work back across the Andes in spirit. A television special filmed among the ruins introduced the album to Chile and Peru, a symbolic homecoming that helped the music become heritage, not just a release. What endures is the record's sense of time. Songs feel carved more than written, as if the band is brushing dust from a buried melody until flutes, voices, and piano gleam. When the drums arrive, they don't keep time so much as animate landscape, the beat of feet on sun-warmed stone. That's why Alturas has become the shorthand for Andes prog, not a style but a stance, using progressive rock's ambition to restore pre-colonial memory to the center of the stage. If you can, play it end to end in one sitting. The sequence is the story. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs. Hands-free at home? Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live. In early 80s Poland, SBB had already outgrown club walls. They were building cathedrals of tone. Józef Skurzek at a fortress of keyboards. Poly Moog, Micro Moog, Hammond, Clavinet, Apostolis Anthimos on electric and acoustic guitars, and Jerzy Piotrowski orchestrating the storm from the drum throne. On Memento Z Banalnym Triptykiem, they fuse symphonic writing with jazz fusion agility, moving from lyrical themes to volcanic improvisation without ever losing the thread. The album's title hints at humility, a memento with a banal triptych. But the music is anything but. SBB write in long arcs, letting themes resolve like cinema. You hear a nation's late communist tension at the edges. Music that longs for air, answers with motion. The LP has since become a touchstone in the band's vast catalog, with collectors seeking out different editions for their subtly different sonic signatures and sleeve credits. If you're new to SBB, this record is the hinge. Grand yet intimate, cerebral yet singable in its motifs. Cue it up loud and let the Rhodes and Moog passages bloom. They're the missing chapter between classic symphonic prog and the fusion boom that followed. American prog rarely sounded this crystalline. Happy, the man's self-titled debut, was produced by Ken Scott. Yes, the studio luminary behind Bowie and Supertramp, recorded at A&M Studios in Hollywood in late 1976 and issued by Arista in August 1977. The decision to go instrumental forward, melody-rich, and impeccably engineered set them apart from both British symphonic peers and US arena rock. Listen for how they sculpt motion. Sax and flute sketch the skyline, keyboards thread labyrinths, and the rhythm section turns meter changes into choreography rather than math. The album became a cult keystone, later appearing on Rolling Stone's 50 Greatest Prog Rock Albums list, an acknowledgement not of sales, but of design. Meticulous, lyrical, and strangely human. Rishus have only deepened its reputation, with remasters by Ray Staff and long-form liner notes revealing a band determined to make complexity feel effortless. What makes this a must for today's listener is its clarity of purpose. The band treats tone like narrative, each timbre a character, each modulation a plot twist. Hit play on track 1 and you're inside a glass-walled observatory, the world turning in precise, elegant gears. When prog came back in the 1990s, it didn't arrive as nostalgia in Sweden. It arrived as a weather event. Englagård's Hybris is 4 long pieces recorded July-September 1992 at Studio Largen, a debut that made analog timbre feel dangerous again. Mellotron choirs, Hammond surges, Moog snarls, and folklore-tinged flute riding on 17-year-old Matthias Olsson's whip-crack drumming. The band co-produced with Roger Skog. The result stands as one of the era's defining documents. The record's secret isn't retro authenticity, it's contrast. Pastoral guitar figures snap into tectonic riffing. Gentle woodwind lines are suddenly framed by avalanches of tape-saturated choir. You can hear the band's crate-digging ears, King Crimson's dynamism, Yes's harmonic daring, but nothing about Hybris feels imitative. It's a restoration of prog's shock value, proof that melody, odd meter, and acoustic color can still feel perilous. 3 decades on, Hybris remains a rite of passage. The moment many modern fans realize the 1970s never truly ended, they just changed studios.
C'est vrai, et c'est triste, et c'est vrai.
In France, Zuril means more than a subgenre. It's a cosmology, incantatory rhythm, low-register mass, voices like ritual. Eschaton took that DNA and made it luminous.
C'est triste, et c'est vrai, c'est vrai.
Four Visions, recorded around 1979 to 80 and issued in 1981, first circulated on cassette, locks pulsing bass and Fender Rhodes to dual female vocals, then rides a trance-like insistence until harmony turns physical.
Quoi faire pour tout à toi? De toute manière, d'accord ou pas d'accord, le monde peut bien se faire.
Part of the record's allure is personnel texture. Sources list a core of drums, Gerard Koenig, guitar, Alain Blessing, keys, Gilles and Mark Rosenberg, with Paul Kleinert and additional voices shaping that unmistakable choral edge. You feel the band's collective focus. Every bar advances the ritual, not the soloist. It's volcanic but disciplined, spiritual without sentimentality.
Vrai, c'est vrai, et c'est vrai, et c'est triste, et c'est vrai.
If magma is the temple, eschaton is the procession outside. Torches, heartbeat drums, voices rising in canon. 4. Visions is the perfect entry if you've ever been curious about Zool but wanted something a shade warmer, more human in its glow. The album opens like a subterranean ritual, a low organ drone, a pulse that feels less like tempo and more like a room exhaling. Paris in the mid-80s was saturated with post-punk and art house experimentation, but Shub Niggurath didn't so much join a scene as tunnel beneath it. They tracked the record in March 1986 at Studio MSR. The cavernous organ parts were cut not in a studio at all, but inside Église Saint-Joseph, Paris 2nd, where natural reverb turned sustained chords into architectural events. That decision, moving a key instrument into a church, wasn't a stunt. It was the concept. Sound that behaves like stone, harmony that throws shadows. Les Morts. Vont vite stretches time without losing grip. The pieces are long, dirge slow in places, yet the arrangements coil with menace. Trombone groans against brittle guitar harmonics. Bass distortion blooms like feedback from the earth's core. Critics later framed the album alongside Avant Prog and Zool, but the band's own coordinates were weirder. Free jazz scuffle against electroacoustic treatments, theater of cruelty atmospherics pulling rock down into chiaroscuro. Ann Stewart's wordless soprano becomes the only lantern in these corridors, a single human tone slicing across black mass instrumentals. The result is frightening and magnetic, a document that feels less in-recorded than exhumed. Context deepens the chill. Shub Niggurath had first circulated a rougher self-released cassette. This debut full-length hardened their language and reputation. Its endurance owes as much to myth as to vinyl. Stories of improvised sections coalescing in post-production, of the band deliberately embracing ugliness to reach a strange beauty, of club audiences going pin-drop silent as if the music compelled a kind of secular reverence. Later issues kept the legend alive as the group scattered following the death of bassist Alain Ballode in 1995. Even now, the record stands as a dare. Can you handle rock when it withholds almost everything except tension and echo?
I'm winning when I've broken every door.
Universe Zero approached rock the way a chamber ensemble approaches a requiem, with discipline, a feel for air between notes, and a willingness to let dissonance carry meaning. The band decamped to Sunrise Studio in Kirchberg, Switzerland, recording March 12 to 16, 1979, then mixing on March 17 to 18, and again in May with engineer Etienne Conneau. The sessions captured a lineup TATEC. Pat reads like a small orchestra, oboe and bassoon, Mikkel Berkmans, violin and viola, Patrick Hanapier, guitar and keyboards, Roger Trigot, bass and voice, Guy Seegers, and Daniel Dennis on drums, the composer-conductor in all but name.
Every door, the ghosts of my life, the wilder.
The three central movements, La Folle, Jack the Ripper, and Vous le saurez en temps voulu, don't unfold so much as encircle the listener. La Folle, the scythe, in an archaic spelling, sculpts a 25-minute arc from hush to hysteria, proof that the band could build terror without any of the usual rock signifiers. What makes Hérésie singular is how acoustic timbres, woodwinds, strings, harmonium wield the heaviness usually reserved for amplified guitars. Later remasters would add period material and extend the running time, but the 1979 core remains a masterclass in negative space and meticulously plotted dynamics.
I was so sure. Now the doubt inside.
Culturally, Hérésie is the stone at the center of Belgian rock in opposition, a scene defined less by a uniform sound than a shared defiance of industry logic.
My life grew wilder than the wind.
The record's cult stature owes to its refusal to compromise. No concessions to verse-chorus familiarity, no producerly gloss to soften the angles, only a dark grammar that thousands of listeners have learned to read by candlelight. That it was captured in a single week and mixed within days of tracking only underlines the band's preparation and intent. Argentina in the late 1970s was not an easy place to make ambitious, large ensemble rock. Yet Boo Boo assembled an almost orchestral force for their only LP, reeds and strings threading through a rock rhythm team, suites that treated themes like characters returning in disguise. Anébelas contains just 3 long tracks, but each is a multi-chapter journey that swings from crimson-like ferocity to sudden pastoral grace, with transitional passages that feel storyboarded rather than jammed. The sense of scale, horn stabs like blinding light, ruminative interludes that let the ear adjust, gives the album its widescreen reputation. Behind the scenes, the band worked like a small repertory company. Arrangements were honed for weeks, dynamics rehearsed so that tutti explosions could collapse into flute or violin without a seam. The LP's scarcity outside South America turned it into a grail object among collectors, and when boutique labels reissued it decades later, a global audience finally heard what local fans had been insisting. This wasn't a curiosity from a peripheral scene. It was a world-class progressive statement shaped by the pressures and possibilities of Buenos Aires. Its renewed availability has cemented Anébelas as one of Argentina's definitive prog artifacts. Viajero in movilrecords.bandcamp.com. What lingers after multiple listens is the discipline. For all its sprawl, Anébelas wastes nothing. Rhythmic cells return with new colors. Melodies migrate from guitar to winds to voices, altered each time by context. It is the sound of a band writing with the whole ensemble, not layering parts, a distinction you can feel in your breath as much as in your ears.
You know, bro, there's just something special about the sound of a classic rock album on vinyl. It's how these albums were originally meant to be heard, the warmth, the crackle, and the ritual of dropping the needle on the record. It's an experience that digital just can't recreate. And if you've ever wanted to dive into that classic vinyl sound, but didn't know where to start, I've got you covered. I've been checking out this Victrola Bluetooth portable suitcase turntable. It's the perfect way to get into vinyl. You just pop it open, put on a masterpiece like Led Zeppelin's 4 or Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, and let the needle drop on that legendary groove. The best part is, it's a suitcase design, so you can literally take your rock and roll vibes anywhere. You can move it from your bedroom to the living room, or even take it to a friend's place. And it even has Bluetooth, so you can stream music from your phone when you're not spinning records. It's the best of both worlds. This is a great starting point for any fan who wants to feel the foundation of rock lore in a whole new way. If you're interested in grabbing one for yourself, I've put a link to it in the description below. Clicking that link and buying one is an awesome way to support the channel and help us keep bringing you more deep dives into the music we all love. So go check it out, and let's get back to the countdown.
The record was composed, arranged, and produced by Pulsar themselves, keeping a painter's control over tone and pacing. Its architecture is explicit, Part 1 and Part 2, each subdivided into titled sections, so listeners can feel scenes change. A lullaby souring into doubt, a childhood color fading into gray, a door closing softly and then slamming somewhere down the hall. The palette is classic and lush, mellotron choirs that cast long shadows, lyrical guitar lines that act like narration, vibraphone glints, and rhythm parts that pulse just below the skin. Personnel credits underline how carefully the atmosphere was curated. Additional cello deepening the melancholy, hand percussion warming otherwise spectral spaces. The gatefold presentation and careful sequencing encourage start-to-finish listening. Even on digital reissues, the piece resists fragmentation, rewarding those who give it the evening and the dimmed lights it seems to request. If French prog sometimes gets caricatured as whimsical or weightless, Halloween is the counter-argument. It suspends whimsy and replaces it with reverie, dreams that slowly turn, revealing new faces with every rotation. That it remains a cult favorite decades later has less to do with nostalgia than with craftsmanship. The suite's internal logic is so strong that it still feels inevitable. Pulsar.
Reveal philosophies like instant pudding.
From The Hague in 1970, a debut arrived that sounded equal parts conservatory prank and compositional breakthrough. Super Sister, Robert Jan Stips at the keys and mic, Sascha van Geest on flute and vocals, Ron Van Eck on bass, Marco Vrolijk on drums, built a Dutch answer to Canterbury's airy complexity without losing local humor. Short motifs flip into odd meters. Organ riffs wink at the listener and then detour into counterpoint. The flute sits not as decoration, but as an engine, pushing the harmony into surprising places. What's striking is how Present from Nancy makes virtuosity feel playful. The band delights in making the hard parts sound like games. Sudden stops that click perfectly, rhythmic hopscotch that still swings. In an era when British peers were stretching tracks to side length, Super Sister proved you could fit the same number of ideas into tighter frames and come out sounding fresher. Decades later, reissues and audiophile pressings have kept the record in circulation, not as a museum piece, but as a reminder that cleverness and warmth can coexist in progressive rock. It also seeded a path for continental prog to be both brainy and light on its feet. You can draw a line from these tunes to later European bands who prized wit alongside counterpoint. The album's longevity rests on that balance: mischief at the surface, discipline underneath, and a signature voice already confident on day one.
Anzi, ottima salute ed attenda con impegno.
Italy in the mid-70s had no shortage of symphonic heavyweights, but Picchio dal Pozzo arrived from Genoa with a stranger proposition. A debut dedicated to Robert Wyatt, built from woodwinds, organs, surrealist lyrics, and ideas smuggled in from the Canterbury scene. The connection wasn't just aesthetic.
Ci impone a beneficio dei nostri lettori.
The LP is explicitly dedicated to Wyatt, and the opener Myrta closely follows the melodic contour of his sea song, translating his private weather melancholy into Italian art rock dialect. That cross-channel handshake, soft focus, hard craft, explains why this record still feels singular in the Italian canon.
So di decifrazione.
It came out on Grog Records, a label founded by bandleader Aldo Descalzi, giving the group the latitude to let horns lead, keyboards blur, and tape manipulations flicker at the edges of otherwise warm ensemble playing. Part of the pleasure is how the album treats songs like rooms you can revisit at different hours. Shorter pieces, Cocomelastico, Bofoncia, carry cartoonish titles but hide careful counterpoint. Longer suites, Sepia, unspool like notebooks of sketches, voice cut-ups, reed chorales, organ ostinati, each idea returning in disguise. The sequencing helps. Side A, Hey Fei, and Side B, Fei Hey, mirror each other in tone, encouraging start-to-finish listening over cherry-picking. That structure, plus the record's homegrown release and its Canterbury kinship, explains why later reissues and international write-ups cast it as both curiosity and cornerstone, beautifully off-center, endlessly replayable. Few Italian prog debuts arrive with this much intent. A 4-part title suite on side A, 3 thematically linked pieces on side B, all orbiting Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The execution is as bold as the premise. Mellotron and Hammond in towering blocks, vibraphone glints inside dark symphonic textures, Stefano Lupo Gallifai's vocals riding the crest. Released in April 1973 after 1972 sessions, it's now routinely ranked among the era's finest Italian prog statements. The album also carried a shadow. Contemporary accounts and later histories describe how Italian national broadcaster RAI effectively boycotted Zarathustra, spooked by both its Nietzschean framing and a collage on the sleeve that included a bust of Mussolini, controversy that blunted the record's commercial reach just as it hit stores. With hindsight, that pushback only sharpened the LP's myth. A band audacious enough to yoke philosophy to rock form, punished for iconography, but rewarded by time. The personnel credits read like a compact orchestra. Giancarlo Golsi's drums and timpani, Enzo Merogno's guitar, Alberto Moreno's bass and arrangements, Pit Caradi's mellotron Hammond, Gallifei's voice, each section written to move as a single organism rather than a stack of solos. Decades of reissues have ensured the music outlived the scandal, its reputation now anchored by both fan archives and interviews with surviving members. On Long Island in the late 70s, choosing to play intricate original prog was a quiet act of defiance. Cathedral formed in 1975 out of the ashes of Odyssey, with mellotronist, keyboardist Tom Doncourt, and bassist Fred Callan at the core, joined by guitarist Rudy Perrone, drummer Mercury Coronia IV, and vocalist Paul Seal. They self-recorded at Delta Recording Studios, released the LP on the tiny Delta label, and then watched it slip into private press legend, until the symphonic reissue around 1990 turned Whispers into a chorus. The origin story matters. DIY stages, self-built light rigs, and a band carving symphonic labyrinths miles from the UK hubs that define the genre. What you hear is momentum with edges, angular guitar figures that fold into long-form structures, bass lines that nod to Squire without mimicry, an ancient-sounding mellotron used as architecture rather than wallpaper. It's a rare American take on symphonic prog that feels both studied and urgent. Interviews and retrospectives underline how improbable the artifact is, a fully realized statement from a scene with little industry oxygen, yet its afterlife has been rich, with collectors and critics treating it as a cult touchstone that proves the idiom wasn't only a British export. It's Psychedelic Baby magazine. Recorded at Morgan Studios in London and released in December 1972, Lady Lake is a study in contrasts, pastoral recorder lines and oboe gestures colliding with heavyweight guitar, brass and reed colors cutting through arrangements that favor story over spectacle. The lineup's palette is unusually broad for UK prog of the time. Tenor horn, oboe, multiple saxes, and the songs carry distinct narrative frames, from the pacifist meditation, I Could Never Be a Soldier, to pilgrimage and ballet references elsewhere. Producer Dick Parkinson kept the sound lean enough for the details to register, and the result is an LP whose emotional weight sneaks up on you. Commercial success never found the band. Nidrolog fractured soon after the album's release. But the record's slow-building reputation has hinged on exactly the elements that confused markets in 1972. The absence of bombast, the presence of chamber colors, the refusal to chase a single anthem.
And the sons found out.
Later issues made clear how much of the music's bite comes from that instrument mix and the writing's unforced poetry. For listeners used to prog as sheer scale, Lady Lake offers a different model, heavy because it's humane. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials, headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs. Hands-free at home? Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live.
Stay with me. You know I never came here before. You make
Cressida's second LP is the sound of a young band maturing fast and dissolving even faster. Tracked at IBC Studios in London in June-July 1970 with Australian producer Ossie Byrne, famed for early Bee Gees work, the album adds Graham Hall's orchestral arrangements to the band's Vertigo-era organ warmth and Angus Cullen's velvet phrasing.
tell me I'll be there.
Though recorded in 1970, it reached record shops in 1971 and by many accounts functioned as a posthumous send-off after the group split later that year. One reason original swirl pressings in their fold-out sleeves became fetish objects for collectors. What elevates Asylum is how naturally it absorbs the orchestra without losing band identity. Peter Jennings's Hammond and Mellotron still carry the harmonic load. The rhythm section still breathes like a live unit. Byrne's production gives everything air. The Closer, often cited by fans as a mini-epic high point, feels like a curtain call for a version of British art rock that prized melody and mood over length for length's sake. Later anthologies and official band notes have kept the record in circulation, but its enduring appeal is simpler. It's Vertigo label gold where craft and emotion share the same sentence. The journey doesn't end here, rock warrior. Watch this next. If you had to keep only 15 rock songs from the 1970s, which ones survive? The ones you can name in 1 second, the ones you still sing in the car, the ones that lit up stadiums and bedrooms and cheap radios at 2 a.m. This list is not about hype, it's about sound and memory. A 4-note riff you learned the first week you held a guitar, a piano ending that breaks your heart every time, a desert hotel with twin guitars that never check out, a choir of voices that broke every rule and still won, and a slow climb to a solo people call the greatest. We'll tell you the year, the album, and why each track lasts. No filler, no repeats, just the 1570s rock songs we'll never forget. How many can you guess in 1 second? Argue with us in the comments. Your picks might shape our next episode. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and let's start at Napuainer 15. The story of Layla starts with a love triangle and ends with a broken heart set to guitar. Eric Clapton had fallen for Pattie Boyd, who was married to his friend George Harrison. He was reading the old Persian tale of Layla and Majnun, a love so strong it drives the hero mad. Out of that mix, real desire and ancient legend, he wrote a song that sounds like two emotions fighting. The first half is all teeth, a desperate riff, two guitars clawing at each other, and a voice that won't hide the ache. Duane Allman's slide lines cut through like sirens, weaving around Clapton's part like a second narrator who refuses to be quiet. The band plays with the tension of a storm about to break. Then the song does something bold. It lets go. The second half is a piano coda, recorded separately by drummer Jim Gordon and spliced onto the track. Suddenly, we're not in a bar fight. We're in a long walk home after the bars close, when the city is empty and you're left with your thoughts. The guitars soften into little sighs. Notes float and answer each other. The melody doesn't resolve right away. It holds you in that floating feeling, like memory itself. That contrast, rage and release, turns Layla into more than a great guitar track. It's a full emotional arc. You don't just hear it, you live through it. That's why people call it the ultimate guitar heartbreak song. Two halves of the same pain, both unforgettable.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
This one begins in a basement. Tom Scholz, a MIT-trained engineer, spent years building songs at home with gear he designed himself. He wasn't chasing a trend, he was chasing the sound in his head. More Than a Feeling is the proof that he caught it. The opening is gentle, a chiming acoustic pattern that feels like sunlight through blinds. Then the band lands, and the song opens up like a door to a stadium. Brad Delp's voice climbs with ease, pure and bright, but there's muscle under every note. The power chords don't crush the acoustic part, they lift it, like the ground rising under a plane that's taking off. The song is about memory and music, and how a few chords can pull you back to a moment you thought you lost. It admits that life moves on and feelings fade, but it also says some songs work like anchors.
A girl I used to know. I close my eyes and
Scholz's stacking of guitars and vocal harmonies makes that idea literal. You can hear layers of time in the mix. What sounds clean and simple is actually careful design. It's home studio alchemy turned into arena rock, and it still feels fresh because it's built on craft, not trickery. The hook hits, the modulation lifts your chest, and by the last chorus you're singing whether you plan to or not. The song proves that Polish doesn't have to mean empty gloss. In the right hands, it can mean clarity. That's why this track keeps living on classic rock radio and in people's heads. It gives shape to a feeling everyone knows. AC/DC plays like a machine that only does one job, but does it perfectly. Highway to Hell is the sound of that machine finally running at full power. Producer Mutt Lange tightened the bolts. Malcolm and Angus Young lock into a riff that never wastes a second. Phil Rudd's drums sit like a steel floor.
No stop sign!
The whole band is a lesson in restraint. Fewer notes, more punch. Over that, Bon Scott walks in like the coolest trouble you've ever met. He doesn't plead or preach. He grins. He tells you the road is rough, the nights are long, and the rules don't matter. And you believe him. The title came out of a grind of endless touring and a very real sense that the band lived on the road. People later tied it to highways back home in Australia, but the bigger idea is universal. A life going fast, loud, and straight into the unknown. There's no guitar heroics for their own sake here. Angus's lines are sharp and memorable because they serve the riff, not the other way around. The chorus is a chant. You can shout it from the cheap seats and feel like you're in the front row. It was the last album with Bon Scott before his death, which adds a shadow to the song. But even without that history, Highway to Hell would stand tall. It's sleek, no-filler hard rock, tuned for the road and built to last. When rock fans talk about the perfect riff, this is one of the blueprints. Born to Run feels like a movie. You can see the streets, the cheap cars, the kids chasing a way out. Springsteen chased this song for months, layering guitars, pianos, glockenspiel, and voices until the mix felt like the inside of a dream. He wanted the Phil Spector wall of sound energy, but he grounded it in real places: New Jersey bridges, factories, and nighttime highways. The E Street Band doesn't just back him, they speak. Max Weinberg's drums push like a heart trying not to slow down. Roy Bittan's piano runs with the melody. Clarence Clemens' saxophone enters like a friend grabbing your shoulder and saying, "Go." The story is simple and timeless. Two people who don't want to be trapped by small plans or broken promises. They don't have a map. They have a feeling, and they're going to trust it. The chorus doesn't soar because of high notes alone. It soars because of how the song builds pressure and then releases it at just the right time. Every element is placed to make that rush hit harder. What could have been a local story turns into an American myth because the details are honest and the hope is real. By the last verse, the band is a wave and Springsteen is riding it with everything he has. 4 minutes later, you feel like you ran beside them. That's why Born to Run still plays like a promise. Life can be loud, messy, and beautiful if you're brave enough to go. When this song starts, it sounds like an alarm, and that's the point. The Clash wrote it at the end of a decade full of trouble. Strikes, rising bills, fear of nuclear disaster, and scenes of cities underwater. The phrase, "London Calling," came from wartime radio broadcasts, and the band uses it like a signal flare. This is a warning and an invitation.
To the imitation zone. Forget it, brother.
The music is lean and wired. The rhythm has a rockabilly snap. The bass hits with authority, and the guitars slice in short lines rather than long solos. Joe Strummer sings like a town crier who also knows the streets. He lists fears and failures, but he doesn't sound defeated. He sounds awake. The magic is how the song keeps its urgency without turning into chaos.
No fear, 'cause London is drowning out.
That came from the band's growth and from the way producer Guy Stevens pushed them, wild at times, but focused on feeling. The lyrics reach beyond local headlines. They talk about a generation inheriting a mess and choosing not to look away. The single arrived with a now famous cover photo of Paul Simonon smashing his bass on stage, a moment of frustration frozen in time. The typeface on the cover nods to Elvis Presley's debut, as if the band is saying, rock has to mean something again. More than 40 years later, the track still hits because it balances dread with action. It doesn't offer a neat solution. It offers a voice that tells you to stand up, look around, and do something. That's why London Calling keeps punching through the noise. It feels like a bulletin from real life, and it still rings true. The band didn't plan this song. They wrote it fast in the studio when they needed one more track. Maybe that's why it hits so hard. There's no fat on it. Tony Iommi fires off a stabbing riff. Geezer Butler's bass follows like a shadow. And Bill Ward's drums keep the floor solid under your feet. Ozzy Osbourne's voice cuts through with a plain, troubled honesty. No poetry for poetry's sake, just a mind in a tight room. The lyrics talk about a head that won't calm down, the kind of restlessness you can't explain to people who don't feel it. At under 3 minutes, the song is fast, lean, and heavy, a prototype for so much metal that came after. Yet it's also simple enough that a kid with a cheap guitar can learn the main line in an afternoon. That mix, power, and simplicity made it a doorway for generations. You come for the riff. You stay because the feeling in it is real.
Isn't that the way? Everybody's got the do's.
It begins like a memory, a lonely piano, a singer almost whispering his thoughts. Steven Tyler wrote about wanting something bigger than the moment he was in, about time slipping past, about trying anyway. The band lets the tension build.
Half my life.
Tom Hamilton's bass moves with patience. Joey Kramer's drums breathe with the song. And Joe Perry plants his guitar lines like markers on a road you're walking for the first time. Each verse climbs a little higher until the chorus finally opens like a door.
Come back to you. Sing with me, sing for the year.
By the last minute, all that quiet pressure explodes. Tyler's voice breaks into that high, desperate wail. The one everyone tries to copy and almost no one can. It's the blueprint for a power ballad. Start soft, tell the truth, stack the emotion, then take off. The reason it lasts isn't just the scream, it's the promise behind it, that pain and hope can live in the same breath, and sometimes the most fragile start leads to the strongest finish. It's the sound of a porch turning into a stage. The opening guitar line is bright and jangly, and it lands so clean you can name the song in a heartbeat. Then the full band steps in. 3 guitars talking to each other, bass rolling easy, drums holding a pocket you could live in. Ronnie Van Zant doesn't oversing, he tells it straight. The lyrics tip the hat to local pride, shout out the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, and throw a few lines back at critics from up north. It's not a lecture, it's a slice of life with a grin and a stubborn spine. That's why the song crossed borders. Bar bands can play it, stadiums can roar to it, and people who've never set foot in Alabama still feel the pull of that chorus. Under the sing-along is a band in total control. Tight enough to hit as one, loose enough to feel human. It's Southern rock with a wide open gate. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe. Roots and lovers. Rock made easy. Automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore. Classic rock must-haves. Open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore. Feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves. Punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end. Plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. so you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is one button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs, hands-free at home. Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live. Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd, 1979. It lives in the space between a doctor's cold voice and a patient's drifting mind. The verses are detached and clinical, like someone checking your pulse while you watch from the ceiling.
My hands felt just like two balloons.
Then the chorus arrives and the world stretches wide. David Gilmour's guitar tone is warm and endless, and the melody climbs in long, aching lines. There are two solos. The second one is the one people argue over at 2 a.m., the one that seems to speak without words. It isn't fast to show off. It is patient, like a story told with breath and light. The beauty of this track is the contrast. Roger Waters' sharp, narrow verses against Gilmour's open, sky-sized choruses. One side is numbness, the other is the strange comfort of letting go. It feels like falling and flying at the same time, which is why it still cuts deep long after the concept album's story fades from memory. Even if you don't know the characters, you know the feeling. Everyone knows the riff. 4 notes, a simple shape, played with the weight of a passing train. But the story behind it is part of rock's permanent record. The band went to Switzerland to make an album by a lake, and a fire tore through the casino during another band's show. The smoke spread across the water. Deep Purple had to finish their record in a borrowed space, with borrowed time, and they turned the chaos into a song that explains itself line by line. What could have been a headline is now a legend, because the music matches the picture in your head. Ritchie Blackmore's guitar is bold without being busy. John Lord's organ doubles the riff so it feels thicker than steel. Ian Pace's drums and Roger Glover's bass keep it steady, like a news report you can stomp to. It's a beginner's first victory, and a veteran's never-fail crowd raiser. The reason it never gets old is simple. It's built from the bones of rock. Rhythm you can feel, a melody you can hum, and a true story told with fire still on it. Sounds like a breakup happening in real time. Lindsey Buckingham wrote it in the middle of the band's most famous storm, and you can hear the argument in every bar. The guitars bite. The vocal is tight in the throat, like someone trying not to say too much and ending up saying everything. Mick Fleetwood's drums gallop, pushing the song forward as if standing still would make the hurt worse. The lyric is blunt and human. No fancy lines, just the truth. The harmonies are beautiful, but they don't soften the punch. They frame it and make it hit harder. That clash, grit inside shine, turns private pain into public electricity. You feel the end of something and the freedom that might follow. It's why crowds still sing this at full volume. The song says the quiet thing out loud, and it moves like a fast car getting out of town. Begins with a repeating synth figure that feels like a machine waking up with a soul. When the drums crash in, the air changes. Roger Daltrey sings about teenage wasteland, but it isn't hopeless. It's a warning and a dare. Don't waste your life, and don't let the world waste you. Townsend's windmill strum turns simple chords into a cathedral-sized sound. The ending's fiddle-like solo feels like a street celebration, turning into a ritual at dusk. The track mixes high-tech and human energy, arpeggios and sweat, circuitry and muscle. It's a youth anthem that never talks down to you. It respects your confusion and your fire, and it opens a door to a bigger room where both can live.
Then she lit up a candle and she showed me the way.
Is a story you can walk into. The guitars shimmer like heat on a highway at night. One line and you're inside. A bright lobby, a friendly voice, a place that seems warm until the shadows move. The band has always treated it as a metaphor about fame, money, and the trap of never-ending good times.
Such a lovely place, such a lovely place, such a love.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can't really leave the world you built around the party. Don Felder's 12-string figure sets the mirage. Joe Walsh locks in for the twin lead finale. Two guitar voices weaving until they become a single path you can't turn off.
She calls friends, how they dance in the courtyard.
Don Henley sings with a calm storyteller's edge, which makes the last images, mirrored ceilings, pink champagne, a beast you never see, feel even stranger. The song keeps its mystery without going vague. That's why it sticks. The final duet is unforgettable, but the pictures in your head last just as long. Should not make sense on paper. No chorus. Sharp turns from gentle ballad to opera theater to hard rock and back to calm. But Freddie Mercury believed in the shape of it, and the band built every inch with care. It starts like a confession, with piano and a voice in a small room.
Body's aching all the time. Goodbye.
Then the harmonies pile up into a small choir. The opera section explodes with jokes, drama, and precise timing, playful and intense at the same time. Brian May's guitar enters like a clean blade, and the whole thing becomes a rock workout, before settling back to almost where it began. The words feel like a puzzle and a play at once, and people still argue about the meaning. What makes it timeless isn't the mystery alone, it's the craft. Every part has a strong melody. Every shift lands at the exact right second. The song broke the rules and became the rule. If the idea is honest and excellent, listeners will follow you anywhere.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Songbird who sings, sometimes all of us sorts are.
Is the slow climb that defines a decade. It opens with quiet acoustic guitar and recorders that feel like a path through the woods. Robert Plant sings in images that hint at a big search, trying to buy meaning in a world that sells easy answers. The band raises the structure step by step. John Paul Jones moves from color to weight.
And it makes me wonder.
John Bonham enters like a planned storm. Jimmy Page's tone brightens and hardens until the solo lifts off, singable, lyrical, and endlessly studied by players everywhere. The form is simple and perfect, A patient rise from folk-like verse to full rock surge. No hard corners, just pressure turning into light. It was never a single in its time, yet radio made room for it because people would wait just to hear that build. The final line lands, the last chord fades, and the room feels different. That's the test of an epic. It changes the space it touches. Stairway to Heaven still does, which is why it stands at the top of this list. A sacred staircase from whisper to thunder. The journey doesn't end here, Rock Warrior. Watch this next. You remember the 80s titans, U2, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard? Cool. But this is the flip side of the decade. 15 bands with bigger hooks than their chart positions, buried in tape boxes and college radio memories. From Sheffield Shadows to Georgia Jangle, LA Power Pop to Manchester Guitar Cathedrals, these are the names you forgot, but the songs you never should have. If you can name 7 before we hit number 1, you're a legend. If not, you just found your new favorite playlist. Drop your score in the comments, hit subscribe, and let's start at number 15. In mid-80s New York, rock seemed split between downtown art noise and glossy radio sheen. The Del Lords cut straight up the middle with songs that felt older than fashion and sharper than nostalgia. Guitarists Scott Kempner, ex-Dictators, and Eric Roscoe Amble, fresh off Joan Jett's band, wrote bar band anthems with a reporter's eye, Work, Luck, Rent, Small Victories, and arranged them with 2 guitar counterlines that lock like gears. Their debut, Frontier Days, 1984, plays like a manifesto. Lean tempos, strummed hard downbeats, choruses designed for rooms where the stage is one step above the floor. A big part of the pull is how the records sound. The drum kit sits present and unhyped. The guitars interlock without smearing. The vocal stays dry and upfront so the storytelling carries its weight. Even the cover choices, Dust Bowl standards repowered through loud amps, signal intent, wire American songcraft to modern electricity, and play like tomorrow's on the line. If roots rock later became a catch-all, the Del Lords were already sketching its best version. Punk economy, country soul feeling, and street corner detail, all without myth-making. Spin the album now, and the tracks still stand like good buildings. Solid lines, clean sight lines, no wasted ornament.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Red Rockers began as Gulf Coast punks with a political streak and, almost perversely, wrote one of the era's most gleaming new wave singles. China, 1983, rides chiming guitars and a chorus you can spot from across the dial. It's the breakout from their second LP, Good as Gold, produced for the Bay Area indie to major pipeline that helped local bands scale up without losing identity. The shift wasn't a sellout so much as a sharpening, early ferocity trimmed into clarity, with drum sounds that breathe and guitar lines that glint without going brittle. Follow the arc and you hear a group testing how far a DIY heart can travel on FM. The follow-up chased bigger hooks, but China remains the Rosetta cut, the sound of regional punk stepping onto a national stage and finding a melody big enough to hold the door. It's a textbook on scene-to-radio translation. Keep the pulse honest, polish the edges, let the hook do the heavy lifting. Kansas City's Rainmakers arrived in 1986 like a smart bar band suddenly given studio headroom. The Rainmakers pairs tight, unflashy guitars with drum rooms that sound like real air, while Bob Walkenhorst sings in a bone-dry, sly voice about Bible Belt life, faith, hypocrisy, Saturday night relief, and Sunday morning reckoning. The writing is literate without ever getting precious. The band plays like they could knock these songs out in a club and still sweat the little studio details when the tape's rolling. They nudged the US charts and made a curious transatlantic splash when Let My People Go Go climbed into the UK top 20. Proof that straight-shooting American rock can travel if the choruses land and the stories ring true.
Bells at the stars, he said, beat me, Big Daddy, A to the bone. What I say.
The longer tale is that the band built loyal pockets overseas, while American radio mostly filed them under regional. That mismatch is part of the charm now, and the debut still reads as a primer in making intelligence feel like a party trick rather than a lecture. Translator were San Francisco romantics with a noir streak, chiming guitars, minor key shadows, and choruses that feel both intimate and enormous. Their debut Heartbeats and Triggers, 1982, delivered a college radio standard in Everywhere That I'm Not, a should-be classic where a jazzy intro riff tumbles into a chorus that seems inevitable, like doors sliding open.
You're in New York, but I'm not. You're in Tokyo too, 'cause that's impossible, that's him. That's impossible, that's him.
The textures are analog warm, the hooks precise, and the rhythm section keeps things buoyant without getting glossy. The engine is a two-singer, two-guitarist partnership, Steve Barton and Robert Darlington, that yields melodic abundance, different angles on similar weather.
Yeah, you're everywhere, but I'm not, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not.
Follow the catalog and you hear the band lean brighter and janglier without losing the adult melancholy baked into the melodies. If jangle pop is sometimes shorthand for lightness, Translator remind you the form can carry weight, longing, doubt, and distance rendered in glassy chords. Wire Train anchor the other pillar of that Bay Area pipeline, young, hook-savvy, and ready for big rooms. The debut in a chamber, recorded at the Automat in late '83, released early '84, is a rhythm-tight statement with the calling card single, Chamber of Hellos. What jumps out is architecture. Serpentine guitar figures that resolve into clean choruses, a rhythm section that moves without showboating, and vocals urgent enough for radio but never forced. Their career arc mirrors American modern rock itself, starting bright and lean, stepping toward a more polished widescreen by the turn of the '90s. But the first album shows the DNA clearest. San Francisco club instincts upgraded for national reach without blunting the attack. You can hear the shared ecosystem, indie infrastructure feeding a major's distribution, a producer's emphasis on clarity and momentum, resulting in songs that feel regional, fog, freeways, neon, and built to travel.
On my own, I live in a house with a bedrock dog. I call around dog.
If the 80s had an ID that barked through a busted PA, it sounded a lot like this London trio. The Screaming Blue Messiahs took jump blues nerve endings, wired them to punk velocity, and then sandblasted everything until only muscle and hook survived. The riffs are jet engine simple, downstrokes that feel like they're carved out of steel, while the rhythm section hammers time as if it's trying to escape the song. Lyrically, they obsess over roads, engines, menace, and momentum. The characters here don't fall in love so much as accelerate toward it. Their core trick is arrangement discipline. Guitars leave space for the snare to punch. Bass notes are clipped so the kick can speak. The vocal rides on top, dry and slightly distorted, like a dispatch from a dashboard mic. Listen for how the choruses arrive without telegraphing themselves. Verses tighten, pre-choruses change the angle of attack, and then the hook snaps shut like a trap. It's rock and roll as propulsion, with no aerodynamic drag. Start with the two calling cards that show both sides of their personality. The swaggering novelty with teeth, I Wanna Be a Flintstone, and the darker, wind in your face surge, Wild Blue Yonder. Then go long form with Bikini Red to hear how a band can be ferocious and meticulous at once. You'll come away with a new definition of minimalism. Not less, but nothing wasted. File this next to REM on your shelf, not as a shadow, but as a parallel line. Out of suburban Georgia, Guadalcanal Diary fused Southern jangle with desert mirage, twangy guitar figures, tom-heavy drums, and lyrics that ping-pong between Southern Gothic snapshots and Travel Ogue surrealism. Where their Athens peers favored murmured mystery, these songs speak clearly. Melodies you can hum by the second chorus, rhythm parts that move your feet without straining for dance rock polish. What makes them special is emotional temperature. They can be exuberant without turning manic, melancholic without going slack. The guitars chime in close harmony, often answering the vocal rather than merely padding it. Bass lines glide, giving the choruses lift. The drums play light on top, heavy underneath, so the songs feel breathable even when they surge. Spin, Watusi Rodeo for the grin. Litany, Life Goes On, for the ache. And Jamboree for the band's most balanced statement of purpose. Tight, emotional, and quietly durable. If you've ever wondered how jangle gets its shimmer, start here. Let's Active is producer-guitarist Mitch Easter's laboratory for luminous pop. Stacked clean guitars, vocal harmonies aimed like spotlights, and drums recorded with just enough room to feel human. The magic isn't just tone, it's design. Intros act like thesis statements. Bridges actually change the weather. Codas earn their keep. The songs feel hand-built by people who know where every wire goes. Under the sparkle lives a noir streak, wistful melodies, lyrics about distance and missed signals, a sense of motion that never quite resolves. That tension is addictive, bright chords casting long shadows. Start with Every Word Means No, to hear how a single guitar figure can pull the whole arrangement into orbit. Then graduate to Cypress for a masterclass in how to keep a delicate record moving forward. This is the sound countless college radio bands chased. DIY ears, studio brain. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s, 90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. so you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is one button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs. Hands-free at home? Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live. Neo-psych done with athleticism. The mighty Lemon Drops build cathedrals out of chorus pedal guitars, then send a rhythm section sprinting through them. There's a hint of gloom in the vocal grain, but the songs themselves are built for forward motion. 4 on-the-floor hi-hats, bass lines that climb rather than brood, hooks that burst out of minor keys like sunlight between clouds. They took the mood of post-punk and taught it to run. The trick to their best records is contrast, glassy textures against insistent grooves, melancholy melodies that resolve in major key lift. Cue up, Inside Out, to hear that balance snap into focus. The verse is all tight shoulders, the chorus opens its arms, and then let World Without End play through to understand how a band can be simultaneously underground and radio ready. If you like your jangle with muscle and your choruses with afterglow, this is your lane. Some bands are filed as goth because they like shadows. The Bolshoi earn the tag because they use shadows. The rhythm section moves like a cat, quiet, coiled, decisive, while Trevor Tanner's vocal sits half a step removed, as if narrating the scene from a nearby doorway. Guitars favor open strings and chiming intervals that ring into the spaces between snare hits. Keys arrive like cold air. It's pop engineering pointed at darker weather. What keeps these songs from sinking under their own atmosphere is craft. The hooks are clipped and memorable, the verse is economical, and the bridges do the subtle lifting that many bands leave to choruses. Away is the gateway, a bass-led verse, a chorus that turns on one perfect interval change, and a lyric that says more by implying. Then live with friends and Lindy's party to hear how the band threads theater into restraint. This isn't costume darkness, it's architectural mood. You remember the rooms the songs built.
I swallowed hard and listened intently, resigned, relentless, deep in the strangest feelings.
In a decade that rewarded either gloss or grit, the Icicle Works aimed for scale. The original trio, Ian McNabb, Chris Lay, and Chris Sharrock, built songs like Observation Decks, Big Vantage Points, Clean Lines, Wind in Your Face. Their early singles sketched the blueprint from both sides of the Atlantic. Love is a Wonderful Color, lighting up UK radio while Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream, crashed through US playlists. And the self-titled debut proved they could make that liftoff feel repeatable. What set them apart wasn't just the choruses, it was the engine underneath. Sharrock's drumming is unusually melodic, Tom speaking in phrases, and the guitars stay glassy and percussive rather than smeared in distortion, leaving plenty of air around the vocal. The writing leans toward resilience rather than romance, weather systems moving through people, not the other way around. Follow the next run of records, and you can hear a band testing the width of the frame, the moodier corners of The Small Price of a Bicycle, The leaner punch of If You Want to Defeat Your Enemy, Sing His Song. The widescreen ambition of Blind. Even when the arrangements get denser, the core ethic remains. Keep the rhythm section articulate. Let the guitars paint light. Make the chorus feel inevitable rather than imposed. Plenty of 80s acts chased anthemic. The Icicle Works built it into the architecture. Their afterstory is telling. Members splintered into in-demand live and studio roles, and McNabb's voice proved durable in any setting. But when you drop back into the band's prime, you hear why the name still surfaces whenever crate diggers talk about underrated with a grin. These are records that level well. You can play them loud in a car or quiet on headphones, and they still land as songs, not just period sound. If Los Angeles power pop had a beating heart in the early 80s, Peter Case kept time with it. The Plimsoll's craft came out of hard miles, Case's stint in the Nerves, the band's club-to-club grind, and it shows in how frictionless the tunes feel once they're rolling. There's a unique chemistry here, guitars that snap more than they shimmer, a rhythm section that pushes without crowding, and melodies that lodge by the second chorus. A Million Miles Away became the calling card for a reason. It's a perfect intersection of punk economy and pop generosity, but the catalog runs deeper. How Long Will It Take? Oldest Story in the World, and a half-dozen album cuts that treat the hook as a craft, not a trick. The Plimsoll's secret is performance design. Everything sounds record-ready and stage-ready, as if the band wrote with both microphones and sweaty rooms in mind. That's why their songs skate between scenes. They're muscular enough for guitar kids, tidy enough for pop heads, unfussy enough for bar crowds. The brief flash of movie-era visibility gave them a wider audience, but it didn't define them. The live documents prove the point better than any clip. If the 80s often split into neon or noise, the Plimsolls chose propulsion. No wasted adornment, no studio candy, just choruses built like boomerangs. Post-punk gave a lot of bands an attitude. The Comsat Angels built a climate. Stephen Fellows' guitar doesn't announce itself so much as haunt the edges. Kevin Bacon's bass writes subplots. Mick Glacier's drums are architectural, all angles and pressure. On the opening trio of albums, Waiting for a Miracle, Sleep No More, Fiction, they refine a language of restraint, slow burn crescendos, minor key harmonies, melodies that sound overheard rather than performed.
Do you know it's got to be this way? No hesitation.
Independence Day and Eye of the Lens are shorthand for the aesthetic, but the deep cuts are where you feel their discipline most. The way a verse holds something back so the chorus can change the room by a few degrees. Mid-decade shifts toward radio brightness didn't erase their temperament, they just moved the furniture. Even in Glossier moments, you can hear the band's central thesis. Use space as an instrument. Let the snare crack travel. Let the bass line decide the horizon. Let the vocal observe, not plead. The result is music that has aged with unusual grace. So many 80s textures feel trapped by their tech. The Comsat Angels sound like choices. Bands have borrowed their weather ever since, sometimes loudly, often quietly, but the source is still cooler than the echoes. Some groups make urgency feel like theater. The sound made it feel like testimony. Adrian Borland wrote and sang with a candor that could be bracing. No costume, little metaphor, just the facts of a feeling and the band's determination to carry it. Jeopardy and From the Lion's Mouth are the cornerstones. Guitars bright but unsweetened. Keyboards that color without coding. A rhythm section that keeps the floor moving while the lyric does the cutting.
Break out, shake off this skin.
Tracks like I Can't Escape Myself, Winning, and Sense of Purpose don't ask for belief. They present evidence. What deepens the catalog is how the band treats dynamics as narrative. Loud quiet is too crude a description. It's more like pressure and release, camera close-up and pan. Even on later records, when budgets, labels, and the band's internal weather got more complicated, you can still hear the ethic: clarity over gloss, direct speech over posturing, vulnerability as a kind of strength. The sound's commercial fortunes never matched the work, and Borland's life carried real weight. Any serious look at the band benefits from compassion as much as criticism, but that mismatch has a second chapter. The songs have kept traveling hand to hand because they give listeners something rare: intensity without rhetoric, beauty without anesthesia. If you want the pulse of the decade without the costume, start here.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Plenty of bands use delay and chorus. The Chameleons built cathedrals with them. 2 guitars, Reg Smithies and Dave Fielding, trace wide, interlocking arcs. Mark Burgess's bass sings counter melodies rather than just anchoring. John Lever's drums are all tom-toms and air, the heartbeat in a long corridor. On script of the bridge, what does anything mean? Basically, and strange times, they turn that vocabulary into a world. Second Skin, Up the Down Escalator, Swamp Thing. Each is a case study in how to make scale without bloat. Verses travel, pre-choruses tilt the floor, and then the hook arrives like a view you've been climbing toward. The magic is emotional engineering. The guitars don't just decorate, they narrate, answering the vocal, widening the frame, pulling the ear forward. The rhythm section refuses to plod. Even at mid-tempo, the songs feel in motion. And Burgess writes with a humane ache that keeps the grandeur from becoming grandiose. Plenty of bands cite them. Plenty of listeners discover them late and wonder how the trick stayed hidden. The explanation is mundane and glorious. It's difficult to make music this spacious and this focused at once. The Chameleons did it 3 albums in a row. Return to those records now, and you hear not just a band, but a method. Build parts that converse, not compete. Use effects to reveal, not disguise. Let the chorus earn its skyline. In a decade that often made big synonymous with loud, the Chameleons proved that the most towering sound sometimes comes from playing with clarity and conviction, and from believing that the space between notes is part of the instrument. The journey doesn't end here, Rock Warrior. Watch this next. Rock history keeps showing you the same posters, but under the headlines there's a secret canon. Songs that built scenes, rewired guitars, and then vanished from the charts. Tonight we exhume 15 greatest rock songs you've never heard of, from Detroit proto-punk to Dunedin Jangle, Sheffield Atmosphere to post-punk cathedrals. Not just what they are, but how they work. The chord voicings, drum feels, mix choices, and the one decision that made each track immortal in the shadows. If you think you know the map, these records redraw it. Death calling the shot in '76. The Monks inventing subtraction in '66. The Clean proving joy with 2 chords. The Chameleons turning yearning into architecture. Comsat Angels making silence a weapon. The sound showing what resolve sounds like. Expect Paisley Underground churn, power pop rockets, and post-punk widescreen. Politicians in My Eyes, Sex Beat, Second Skin, Independence Day, Winning, and 10 more you'll be recommending tomorrow. This is Rock Lore. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's drop the needle. Watch to the end and leave your one sleeper classic plus why. I'll pin the best picks and build part 2. Scott Miller wrote like a pop classicist who kept a math notebook open on the piano. Erica's word is proof. Radiant guitars, brainy chord pivots, and a lyric that makes private longing feel like a code only you can crack. The secret weapon is motion. Where lesser power pop camps on the route, Miller keeps the bass line and upper voices traveling, suspensions resolving a beat late, passing tones turning corners you don't see coming, little modulation feints that make the chorus feel like the ground lifting under your feet. It's ear candy with architecture. Production is all air and articulation. Chiming 12 strings and bright, narrowly EQ'd rhythm guitars leave room for a bass that sings without booming. Drums are close and dry enough that every tom fill feels conversational rather than showy. And the vocal sits on the front edge of the beat, earnest, slightly urgent, which is why the hook reads compassionate instead of cloying. You can hear the template that later college rock and indie pop bands leaned on. Intelligence as a feel, not a thesis. Erica's word never shouts about its cleverness. It lets structure make feeling inevitable.
Hey, Rock Lore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rock Lore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Here's Jangle not as nostalgia, but as cinema. Almost With You frames its melody with 2 guitar narrators, one 12-string laying a bell-like arpeggio grid, another tracing lyrical counterfigures that rise and fall like camera moves. The rhythm section is deliberately non-aggressive, kick and bass tuck under the guitars to make the harmonic shimmer read like weather.
Pretty maid's not far behind the dust which fills your sleep.
When the chorus arrives, it doesn't inflate, it clarifies. Chord choices avoid the obvious IV. Suspended and added tone voicings pull your ear upward, so lift happens without volume creep. The lyric's power is restraint. Rather than plot, you get images, a shoreline, a distance, a beckoning that never fully resolves, mirrored by the arrangement's refusal to land hard on big cadences.
Does it always feel this chill?
Reverbs are long but dark tuned, so space feels warm, not glossy. It's the rare single that lets mystique carry momentum. By refusing to explain itself, the track becomes a place you return to. That sensibility, song as atmospheric room you can walk around in, seeded a generation of jangle psych and dream-leaning guitar music from Australia to Athens to Paisley Underground LA. On paper, 3 chords, boy meets detachment. On record, combustion. Pete Parrott sings like someone observing his own wreck with weary affection. John Perry's guitar turns the whole thing into airborne architecture, carving a lead line that doesn't decorate the tune so much as argue with it. The arrangement trick is tension versus release. Verses sit tight, straight eighths, clipped chords, bass on a short leash. So when the pre-chorus lifts, notice the melodic climb against a still economical rhythm part. The chorus feels like a pressure valve opening. Tone paint matters. Guitars are bright but not brittle. They occupy the upper mids with enough bite to read on cheap. The solo is a clinic in narrative. Melodic motif set up in the first 4 bars, expanded and inverted in the back half, then handed back to the vocal with a flourish that makes the next verse feel earned. Decades of bands learned the same lesson here. Confidence isn't volume, it's flight path, knowing exactly where you're going and taking off at the last possible second. Power pop loves sugar. Amplifier adds vinegar and becomes unforgettable. Chris Stamey and Peter Holsapple hang a bright, instantly hummable melody on a lyric that's half breakup inventory, half gallows humor. The joke, you can keep the furniture, I'll take the amplifier, lands because the band refuses slapstick. Guitars jangle with just enough grit to suggest frayed nerves, not tantrums. The rhythm section plays politely urgent, dotted eighth guitar figures and little push-pull drum accents turning the screws without raising the tempo. Harmonically, the verses flirt with bittersweet color tones. The pre-chorus shifts harmony earlier than your muscle memory expects, nudging you forward, and the chorus hits with the satisfying thump of a door closing. Arrangement is economical, no wasted overdubs, backing vocals placed like highlights to outline the melody's geometry. It's a blueprint for American alt guitar craft later bands would copy. Hooks that smile while the lyric winces, clean lines that carry emotional complication better than bombast ever could.
I recall a boy in bigger pants.
Memory has a time signature, and Catalin Kane writes it down. Grant McLennan sets childhood recollection against a rhythm that refuses square symmetry. Those odd meter verses, count the lopsided pulse, feel exactly like thoughts arriving out of order. A train window, a sunburnt paddock, a house that's smaller now. When the chorus lands, the meter resolves and sunlight floods the frame.
Memory waste and the waste. Memory waste.
Few singles have ever made structure feel so much like biography. Instrumentally, the band is all about negative space. Acoustic guitars sketch the frame. Electric lines enter like underlines, not exclamation points. Bass avoids the obvious route long enough to make the harmony feel suspended, then resolves at the last possible moment.
And then the railroad takes him home. Through fields of
Lindy Morrison's drumming is the song's conscience. Brushes and light sticks shaping a pocket that propels without insisting, then opening up in the chorus to let the melody breathe. Production keeps everything present and unvarnished, as if preserving the grain in the wood. The performance sounds newly remembered every time. The influence runs quiet but deep. Jangle and indie scenes learn from this record how restraint can carry grandeur and how odd meter can feel natural if you anchor it to images the heart already trusts. Catalin Kane doesn't ask to be an anthem. It becomes one every time someone hears their own childhood pacing embedded in its bars.
Yeah, may as well be for show.
The Dream Syndicate took Velvet Underground vocabulary, two-chord hypnosis, feedback as sentence structure, and made it present tense. Tell Me When It's Over opens the days of wine and roses with a dare. Guitars locking into a low, churning figure, while Steve Wynn sings like he's negotiating with the inevitable. Carl Prakota's lead tone is a character of its own, narrow, bright, just verging on feedback, writing margins around the vocal line until margins become the text. The trick is escalation without decoration. The rhythm section, Kendra Smith, Dennis Duck, refuses to sprint, which lets every micro-surge in the guitars read as narrative. A bend that leans too long, a scrape that the room absorbs, a chord that doesn't quite close the door. Producer Chris D keeps the image close and dry. Reverb doesn't sweeten anything. It simply proves the band is really there. When the final third stretches out, you can hear the template for a generation of American indie. Repetition as pressure, tension as hook, release withheld until the last safe moment. It isn't a jam, it's cross-examination. Howard Devoto left the Buzzcocks and took a thought experiment with him. Can paranoia move like a sports car? Enter Shot by Both Sides, a debut single that treats velocity as philosophy. The famous cyclical riff, kin to the Buzzcocks' Lipstick, is a treadmill that speeds up your thoughts. John McGeoch's guitar answers in clipped, heroic figures that feel both precision-engineered and on the verge of skidding out.
Why does the goals just what's real? Why not give it to everything? Stars, bubbles.
The drums are dry, crisp, almost metronomic. The bass keeps its counsel until a bar needs a shove, then supplies it with one note, not five. Devoto sings like a man narrating from the middle of a crowd and the middle of his head at once.
On the way to the heart of the crowd, I was shocked to find what was allowed.
The vocal angles, odd emphasis, lines that overrun bar lines, turn the chorus into an argument you can chant. Production stays unfussy, which is why the song still feels aerodynamic. No couching pads, no safety net, just edges and air. Post-punk often gets filed as dour. Shot by Both Sides is exhilarated by its own clarity, showing how intelligence can be kinetic and how a riff can be a worldview. Two chords, one grin, a budget barely big enough to buy strings, and somehow a movement. Tally Ho is the Dunedin, Flying Nun ethos in miniature. Organ jab for punctuation, trebly guitar skipping across the surface, rhythm section running just a hair ahead like kids racing each other home. The production is charm, not compromise. Close, almost mono, every transient intact. So you hear hands and lungs and a song that sounds like it decided to exist 5 minutes before the tape rolled. What's enduring isn't just the cheer, it's the economy. Harmonic motion is minimal, which makes arrangement choices meaningful. A well-timed organ fill feels like a fireworks display. A tiny drum break resets the horizon. Plenty of lo-fi bands would chase this feel. Few understood the discipline behind it. Leave space, keep the chord simple, and put all the invention in attack and timing. Tally Ho proves you can build an entire scene on joy engineered with intent. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones, and living room systems that handle low end. Plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs, hands-free at home. Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live. Before Blondie made it a hit, Jack Lee's original was already perfectly wired. The nerves compress power pop to fighting weight, no fat in the arrangement, guitars crisp and present, drums punching straight lines without leaning eye into rock muscle. The vocal melody is a staircase you can sprint. Short phrases, tight rhymes, a pre-chorus that feels like the last inhale before takeoff. So when the chorus hits, you don't feel surprise, you feel completion. What separates this from 1,000 bright guitar singles is phrasing intelligence. The verses advance in clipped images, the pre-chorus widens the vowels without slowing the tempo. The chorus lands on the title with such clean scansion that you can teach it to a room in one pass. Production makes radio your ally. Mid-range guitars leave the bass room to speak. The snare is tuned to read on cheap speakers. The whole mix is forward without being brittle. Blondie added polish and swagger. The nerves provide the blueprint. And once you hear it, the later version reads as a glorious cover of a song that was unbreakable from day one. 5 American GIs shaved their heads in Germany, wired a banjo like a rhythm guitar, and invented a future minimalism the 60s didn't know where to shelve. I Hate You is the Monks at their starkest. Stomp beat, 2-note bass threats, organ like a warning light, and barked vocals that make contempt sound like a military drill.
It's because you make me hate you, baby.
The lyric invites overreading. Is it anti-war, anti-romance? Both. But the form is the message. Repetition as bludgeon, arrangement as weapon, negative space as menace. The recording is gloriously unvarnished, amps hot, transients unchecked. So every choke, scrape, and snare crack lands with documentary force. You can draw a straight line from this track to punk abrasion and noise rock's iron diet. You can also hear how timing sells provocation. The beat is just behind square, which gives the stomp a drunken lurch rather than a tidy march. In 1966, surrounded by filigree and feedback psychedelia, the Monks chose subtraction and turned it into shock. Decades later, it still feels like a dispatch from a band that discovered the atomic unit of rock and decided not to add anything back. Before the punk story had been formatted for export, 3 black brothers in Detroit, David, Bobby, and Dennis Hackney, wrote a single that reads like a blueprint. The guitar tone is chiseled and percussive, chords clipped hard so every attack behaves like a snare. The bass is wiry and mobile, refusing to sit on roots. The drums strike dead center on the beat with just enough push to make the whole band feel like a closing door. Structurally, the track moves with purposeful austerity. No ornamental bridges, just a pressure cycle of verse, pre-chorus, chorus, where the harmonic floor stays simple and the rhythmic argument tightens. The subject is disillusion, but the delivery is discipline. Where later punk sometimes mistakes speed for urgency, Death used space, half-bar breaks, choked chords, and voice leading that lands a fraction early to make the critique feel inevitable. The recording's dryness, little reverb, hot amps, transients intact, preserves the physicality of a band in a small room. And that presence is the point. This is a document of proto-punk's vocabulary before the style calcified. Attack as rhetoric, subtraction as style, conviction as meter. You can draw lines from here to DC hardcore, to Midwestern post-hardcore, to garage revivals. The DNA is all in the choices. Cut the fat, say the thing, mean the hit. Jeffrey Lee Pierce didn't blend genres so much as ignite them. Sex Beat takes rockabilly's snap, Delta Blues menace, and punk's tempo, then wires them together until the song behaves like a single circuit. Ward Dotson's guitar sits bright and slicing in the upper mids. Telegraphic riffs, trebly twang, short, sour bends that feel like warnings more than flourishes. The rhythm section plays a gallop without grandstanding. Kick on the floor, snare up front, bass running parallel lines that widen the lane without softening the edges. The arrangement is a study in momentum. Verses are tight, 4-bar cells locked to a chord that refuses to bloom. So the pre-chorus and chorus feel like a sideways step into a larger room, not a key change. Pierce's vocal is theater by erosion. Phrases tumble ahead of the beat as if the lyric is tripping over itself to reach the next bar, then pull back just enough to make the next downbeat feel like a cliff. Lyrically, obsession and danger are treated as weather, not metaphor. Musically, that translates to durational insistence. Keep the tempo, keep the pattern, let repetition raise the temperature. You can hear the downstream effects in psychobilly, in cowpunk, in dark Americana. The method is right here. Tension as hook, twang as blade, trance by speed. Some bands stack parts. The Chameleons stack horizons. Second Skin turns post-punk into a panoramic field recording. 2 chorus-drenched guitars. Reg Smithies and Dave Fielding trace interlocking arpeggios and long line suspensions that never quite resolve until the vocal insists. John Lever's drumming favors tom patterns and off-center accents that lift sections without resorting to cymbal carpet. Mark Burgess's bass refuses the obvious route, choosing counter melody that steers harmony from underneath. The chord changes are simple. The voicings and note lengths make them feel epic. The song's engine is dynamic patience. The first third builds a floor. Guitars sketch climate, rhythm section stays conservative, vocal sites conversationally in the pocket. Middle section, a modest harmonic tilt and lengthened bass notes make the air feel thicker. Final lift. Drums open the stereo image, guitars move from lattice to sheet, and Burgess pushes his register without abandoning pitch discipline. No tempo shift, no key modulation, just arrangement blooming like time-lapse. The lyrics' haunted persistence, "I've been waiting," is mirrored by the music's refusal to give you an easy landing. Catharsis arrives because the band has taught your ear to yearn. Subsequent waves, shoegaze, dream pop, widescreen indie, borrowed this exact alchemy. Chorus pedals for weather, toms for lift, bass as secret singer. Sheffield's Comsat Angels made Atmosphere behave like plot. Independence Day is cold and intimate at once. Stephen Fellows' voice close-mic'd and steady. Andy Peake's keyboards offering slim, glassy voicings rather than pads. Kevin Bacon's bass pulsing under the kick instead of through it. Meek Glacier's drums tuned low and dry. Each snare hit a muted photograph. The harmonic palette is narrow, minor shapes with added tone ambiguity. But the arrangement shifts weight so subtly that the same chord can feel like resignation in one verse and resolve in the next. The magic trick is negative space. Guitars choose register carefully to avoid masking the vocal. Keys appear and vanish like breath on a window. Drum fills are placement, not decoration. When the chorus lands, it is not because more has been added, it's because the existing elements lengthen. Bass notes sustain a hair longer, snare releases slightly wider, and the vocal line arcs over the bar instead of to it.
We should be dancing on the city streets. I know the chill.
The lyric's stoic defiance reads as engineering as much as emotion. Independence as the ability to hold shape when the room empties. Whole schools of post-punk and post-rock learned from this. If you control decay, you control narrative. If you choose silence, you choose power.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Winning is what it sounds like when resolve becomes rhythm. Adrian Borland sings from the edge of a storm, not triumphalist, not broken, backed by a band that understands how to make lift from clarity. The drums are straight ahead but alive, kick and snare tuned for articulate punch, so the groove feels urgent without hurrying. Graham Bailey's bass writes a second melody, stepwise climbs into the chorus, small anticipations that tug the harmony forward, while the guitars trade roles. One chimes a clean, bell-like grid, the other cuts small, bright figures that read as highlights, not clutter. Keyboards, sparingly, widen the room exactly when the lyric reaches for daylight. The song's architecture is a masterclass in earned catharsis. Verses are tight and conversational. Pre-chorus introduces a suspension that refuses immediate resolution. Chorus releases tension without blowing out the dynamic ceiling. The hook isn't blared, it's proven by the band's unanimity of time feel, by Borland's unflinching delivery, by harmonic choices that let optimism sound like work, not wish. Production keeps the image present. Reverb's dark-tuned, guitar separated by register instead of sheer volume, so every element has edges. This is why the track endures as a private anthem for musicians and devotees. It models a way to push back against the undertow without posturing. In a better-known discography, this would be a standard. In the sounds, it's a mission statement whispered at arena scale. The journey doesn't end here, Rock Warrior. Watch this next.